Welcome to episode 24 of the Indie Creator Exchange. Today we're interviewing the Megatrip with his second volume, Tales to Enlighten. We have already interviewed Mr. King for his first Tales to Enlighten. So that is in the playlist. So definitely you're going to have to go back because we're just picking up where we left off. At least I am. I know Jake has been on the PDF. I spent the last 3 nights going through this as if, Matt, this was the Holy Bible. So I have a lot of questions. But I want to give Jake the grace of getting us started. So, Jake, you wanna take us in?
Yeah, well, you sent me the PDF for preparation for this episode, and just like the volume 1, these are tomes. I mean, we're talking like over 400 pages here, and so
this one's 550.
It's really chock full of stuff, and you do have some sequential, but you also have all of these faux ads and pinups and everything. There's just so much in here, and that's going to be my first question for Matt. You introduce the second edition here with these great retro ads. Right, a couple pages of these retro ads, and they look just like stuff right out of the 70s. These old magazines and broadsheets and all kinds of pamphlets and everything. So, what is that? Is this real? Where do you get those fonts?
So,
right.
So I collect a lot of religious propaganda bullshit stuff, like all the stuff you're referencing, and a lot of old magazines, old advertisements and stuff. I really dig that stuff. So when it came time to do this book, I figured I'd put some of that stuff between each story to kind of break stuff up. And my brother is world-class designer. That's his full-time profession. So I really leaned on him, where I would find something say that page on the left you're looking at right there. That's an actual ad from something, and I would send him the original. And but I would change all the copy and give new images or whatever. And as far as finding the fonts, that's that kid's bread and butter. Yeah. So that's really he helped me out tremendously doing all that.
The other thing,
I could have the vision, but I couldn't. I don't have the technical skills to produce such a thing.
With the page toning and with the creases and the crinkles, right? So, I have tons of stuff that's just like that because it's just ripped up for real. But, adding all this stuff, these kids today, they're using filters and they're using effects and everything. But,
right.
I love, what that adds to it, because you feel, when you're picking this up, you feel like you've found something from the olden days, and, you're really finding something trippy and rare and off the beaten path, and it's exactly the mood setter that you want before you start to get into the actual comic.
Right. So we would I would scan just blank paper or whatever I could find.
Yeah.
A good tip, somebody told me, or I read somewhere, they would go to old used bookstores,
end papers,
and sometimes old hardcovers and stuff would have just blank pages in the back, like if it,
Sure.
you know, they didn't hit
That's
the number.
also
And
that's also
yeah,
how
and they would just rip those
based on
out
the
and
date of
scan
that
them,
book.
and you
Like,
know,
let's
for
say you
the
had
paper
a
textures.
1889 edition. That's how art forgers will do then a drawing saying it's from a famous artist from that era, 1884. So that's also
Yeah,
it's all it's pretty cool.
you mentioned you mentioned the graphic design, and you mentioned the you know the autograph
Wow.
industry. I used to work for 10 years. I worked in the autograph industry, and my job was to do this big auction catalog, and I would have to handle all these documents and scan every single one of them. And so George Washington goes back to the 1700s, but I've handled like Napoleon. I've handled like the middle, medieval, like parchment scrolls and everything. And there are forensics. When you're trying to spot forgeries and everything, where people go under microscopes and they sample the ink and they send it out to a lab and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So just having a piece of paper, that's really really old, is like a canvas for a forger, because you can you can put stuff on there and you can't get caught, at least on the paper, and yeah, right. And you got to try to make some old, make some old India ink and throw like some stuff in there.
You're halfway there.
Like literally like getting some like old rusty knife or something and then scraping it off and putting in the ink and everything. They do all this stuff because when you're trying to forge something that old, there have been people that try to say, hey, this is a religious text. This is like going to change everything. And it's funny, like we're just talking about visuals here, but the world, paper, everybody should understand, paper, it's going to be around for a long time and it's going to change over time. And I love the way old paper looks, and
smells.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the look of this book. I was very, I'm like, when I see something and I want to make it happen, I'll do anything I can. And it really helps that my brother had all the skills, and he's also like a perfectionist.
Yeah,
like he's
great.
not going to be
I just want to say, ahead of time,
handing it to him, I knew
really overstate
I would get what I was looking for.
The term Bible, and I really, for the questions I have, Matt, about this, is you're obviously making a lot of humorous injection to people taking things too seriously, i.e. religion, iconography and religion. And I don't want to just, like the last episode, just sit there and kind of let flipping through. So I do have like, different places that I want to kind of jump to and ask you just specific questions. But I really do want to start you off with like the whole idea of somebody conceptually, yourself putting something together that somebody like me has now a copy and can't really sit down and go one page at a time like a regular comic book. So was that all intentional? Is to have something biblical to return to constantly? Or was it just because you amassed just too much stuff and you had to put it all together?
It's actually more the latter, but I really enjoy the idea of the former. Like, so originally some of these these were a bunch of these stories. They're all short stories for the most part. A few of them were intended to be in the first volume as backup stories, and the page count was too much. It was at 300 pages, and I was like, I can't make a book this big. But I also kept commissioning stories, so I was like, I'll put all these side stories. We call it like sequels, prequels, side stories, and secret origins or something. All these short stories in a separate book. but I ended up with the same problem again. You know, I really should have broken this up into the New Testament and then like the newer Testament. You know, should have made 2 books out of it. You know, but I was just so. Some of these stories have been being worked on since James had started on the original story. So I've been living with that stuff for a long time, and I was just like, I have to like just get this all done and out, and it was just too much after a while. So the book is a ridiculous size, Bible length, and yeah, I like the idea of it being like
let's spend a minute there because
religious document
people
that you can
might
come back
just
to
be
and
tuning
read
into
here
this
and there
and be wondering, like, what this is about. There's obviously a
Sure.
religious theme, but there's also a theme of spirituality, mysticism, and then you then get into these stories, and it's basically humor, action, some adult stuff going on. So what's the, like, how do you describe this in interviews like this to the general audience of because this is an assault. This is a mental assault, and it really challenges people flipping through all these pages, seeing all these colors and styles, and the graphic design and everything. So like, expand a little bit on the the foundational concept.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. Very quickly, the first book, the premise was 2 buddies. One is a knockoff on the son of Satan, known now as the grandson of Satan. The other one, knockoff on Machine Man, now known as Manfred the Man Machine. They're buddies. They want to reach enlightenment. That's their plan. So they use their grandfather's machine.
Well, everybody knows that, yeah.
Which, if you take 666 severed heads of superheroes, it'll transport you to enlightenment. What they find out is enlightenment isn't like a higher level of consciousness or a better way of living, but it's actually a nightclub called Enlightenment, where the grandson of Satan's favorite DJ Megatrip, is playing. So DJ Megatrip takes him aside, gives him all these like Zen Buddhist lessons, all this kind of crazy pseudo religious stuff, and in the end is revealed to be Christ. So the grandson of Satan's is the biggest fan of Christ unknowingly. Anyways, I don't really have a problem with religion. I have a problem with hypocrisy and organized religion fleecing people, and people pushing religion on other people. So the whole idea of this book is you don't need all that. Just be a good person, and don't fuck with everybody, and that's what he gets taught. So when we move to the second book, we just expand on all the characters from the first book. We give secret origins, or we fill out their backstories more. I get to work with 32 different artists on this book. So it was there's like all sorts of different styles, and I try to vary up my writing style. Like I wrote like a children's story in there that was illustrated. People are gonna hate on me for this, but I have an AI generated art story. Well, we'll talk about that more. Don't leave me like just like I'm promoting AI. Let's talk about it later. But there's there's a story in there that's actually from 1980 from a friend of mine from a comic book store that I think Kurt would really like, called The Core of the Barbarian. We can talk about that. I have artists from all over the world, all different styles. you know, a lot of friends I've made in making these books.
Yeah.
You know, it's just been a blast. But yeah, happy to answer any questions specifically.
Right. Okay. So yeah,
you guys I feel like that's a pretty good,
some very trippy stuff. I love
like
the
a baseline
idea.
description of what's going on in here.
You're influenced by, you know, some Marvel characters,
if that works for you.
And you know, the Son of Satan is kind of an obscure character, but the Machine Man, one of my favorites. And then you just take off on that, and then you get into this, you know, real kind of like sacrilegious humor. You know, it does throw you back like to all the undergrounds, but you can see the modern polish on it, you know, with the colors. And then, you know, as you're flipping through pages, you just come, you know, from one style to the other to the other. So that reminds you of the undergrounds too, because, you know, in those anthologies, you never knew what you were going to get when you turn the next page and the next page. You have, you know, some pretty long sequences here, you know, and some very professional artists, you know, mixed in. And then, you know, you have some more amateur styles going in. You know, this is all intentional. And her, you know, I love this kind of idea. You know, I'm just thinking about us and like maybe making a 400-page book when we like, you know, have years worth of stuff. With years worth of stuff on the Substack and all of the, you know, fan contributors and everything. You know, the backstories, they just, you know, continue to grow on themselves, right?
Let's go.
Then, you know, you just keep going and expanding them. And you're not even up to page 50. Go ahead.
I know, but the thing, just to help, I want to lead your question. I want to lead into a question, Jake. You know, is it story or style that you're generating your stories? Because I just get, here it is right here. So this one, I was just flipping through. It seemed to really stand out as, you know, asking that question. Like, I know from the last interview we had with you, Matt, and just, you know, the banter that happens online and watching, you know, your feed on Tumblr and Instagram. Are you generating these stories like in conceptual style? In other words, is this artist somebody that you just sort of feel the story's there, or is a story that, or is a story pushed upon the artist?
Right. For the most part, so that story there is illustrated by Sam Blanchard. He goes by Schlepzig on Instagram. So mostly the style informs the story. Okay. So in other words, like the way he draws made me think of jumping 10,000 years in the future. That's just where this story takes place. Right. And going from there, you know,
definitely dancing around the eras,
but you know, and a John Coltrane centric story.
That
yeah, and there's definitely some stories that were written for one artist, and then they like fell through or backed out or couldn't, you know, just didn't have time to do it. That went to another artist. So there's cases
one of these
of both.
Pages on the digital one,
the way you
are you know, double page spreads. That's an interesting way to do it. And then sometimes you just have like a, you know, a full image that I guess the gutter will then interrupt. Right, so you have to send that in as a bleed in the middle, right? A full, like a bleed on both sides in the center.
Right. Yeah. Right. So again, this is where my technical skills, you know, even putting together
I didn't actually put that together.
The print files, or even down to the digital PDF version, you know, I didn't actually put that together.
Okay. Yeah, look at all those styles. I mean, you know, this is like the modern underground, you know. Some of these artists, you know, they're very irreverent styles, and you know, you have it's pretty uncensored stuff. And the ideas go anywhere, the art goes anywhere. Um, it's really fresh. It's really, kind of a fresh thing, compared to all the stuff that we're seeing nowadays. And then you keep going back to those little like palette cleansers of the, crazy, you know, religious graphic design. Yeah.
Yeah, that you summed it up. Like I wanted to like just get off the rails, and let these styles speak for themselves, and then we'd interrupt it with a little design propaganda, and then we go back to something totally different.
Yeah.
The only exception to that was we did the secret origin of Megatrip towards the beginning, and I let those stories run one into the next without breaking it up.
Right.
There's like four different artists.
Yeah, I mean, I hope this is giving people at home, some really, fresh ideas on just like, it's more than an anthology because they all are connected with a theme. But then just trying to limit it to one theme, just one central idea, it doesn't work. You have the brainwashing, the cults, the religious stuff, then the sex and the violence and the trippy art, the writing. There's some prose in here. It's really great.
Thanks, man.
There's a lot here.
Is Tengu Guro? Is he Japanese?
No, I do not believe he is. He's like Canadian.
Yeah, because this style was one of the biggest outstanding. Like, just for its ability to just dump out. Like,
so that story in particular, when you were asking like which comes first, the style or the story. So I was following his stuff. He's on Facebook. I'm sure he's on Instagram too, but his accounts I think just keep getting deleted. So
I wonder why.
Yeah. So I asked him to do something, and I basically just said, let's just. So Megatrip is the guy in the Illuminati helmet with the all-seeing eye. I said, listen, this helmet gets passed down generation to generation to different users. Can you do something with that where you just with some body horror, just show and. I figured he'd do a couple pages, and I think he gave me like 20. He gave me 20 pages.
Wow.
Jeez.
And those are dense pages too. I mean,
it's incredible.
See the influence there. I'm reminded of Mike Diana, but there's some real like trippy stuff. There's some real kind of like subversive stuff in there, but then you don't necessarily see it popping out because it's all blended into each other.
Right. It's the kind of thing you really just have to sit down and really like.
Yeah, you got to
give a good look at.
Go one section at a time. Yeah. And of course, Mike Diana, of course, is the controversial guy from the 80s, 90s that was trying to
Boiled Angel.
Right. Was trying to really get attention, raise eyebrows. He was actually a test.
I think he's the only one that's been convicted of obscenity in the comic book field, right?
Right. He was like a First Amendment test case, right?
Right.
Yeah. There's a good documentary on him.
There is,
It's really good. And of course, he's not allowed back in the state of Florida because they did convict him. He just fled the state. Lives in New York, I think, or at least by the last time. But the styling part of it, it really gets me connected or in a way, because like I leave my real job in 2015. Like a couple years later, I go to SBX thinking, I'm going to check out what's going on in comics, and to be seriously open about it, I was disappointed. And the disappointment was, and the only way I can really find a terminology to explain the disappointment is like Adventure Time comics were just so prevalent, but it was also this very neon, glowing, hyperistic comics and cartooning where, I do have a bit more of a fine arts and leaning into rendering and stuff to that point. But I'll say this, having the first volume of Tales to Enlighten, James Edward Clark's work really introduced me to, I think I would call it like the contemporary form of making comics. But are you partial to, let's say, people making comics now, or do you also try to lean back? Because this one has this, I call it like Kirby on acid, so at least there's that heavier handedness, like, I'm going to make it look and feel like Kirby as best I can. But what is your take, in how comic books are being made in this very cartoony style, if you will?
Right. Well, first of all, the art there is by Andrew Buck, who he just doesn't make enough comics. I absolutely love the kid. But it's just like anything. It's like with music, I'm sure. You just have to look for the good stuff, It's I lean back and look at, I'm always reading old, like I'm going through and trying to do a complete reread of Doctor Strange, the whole, everything, all the different series. And I'm always reading those old creepy and eerie archives, But in the same time, I follow, I don't know, hundreds of people on Instagram, and whenever somebody I really like puts out a work that I'll jump on it, so you just have to look.
Do you reach out to them to say, "Hey, we'd like to work together"? Is that what it is? Like you just immediately respond to it?
That's the way this book was made.
Okay.
With the pinups and everything, it was like I would just. There's that stupid cliche about you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. It's just like, hey, right. I hand wrote Richard Corbin a letter and tried to get him to do a pinup, before he passed, So I tried everybody,
Yeah. You got nothing to lose.
Anybody that I was a fan of, all the old 80s comics that I was, I could find, there was a comic called Johnny Gambit back in the 80s. And I looked up Alan Oldman, who was the artist writer. And he's like a DJ. He's an American, but living in Germany. I emailed him and it just was like, hey man, I love Johnny Gambit. Like, I'm doing this thing. Would you be interested in doing a pinup? And, what are they going to tell you? No, that's the worst they could do.
And then if they say yes, then you ask them, well, would you do a sequence? Would you, see if you get something out of them?
Exactly. So Andrew, I followed his work for a while, and I was like, listen, I wrote this story specifically with you in mind. I think it's like, wow. I don't know if it's like a dozen pages or something there. I'm like, and he was up for it, but there's plenty of people that, were like, no, I don't have the time, or, just doing, basically Richard Corbin's response was like, I'm sure you would love a Richard Corbin pinup. He goes, basically like if I did pinups and covers for everyone who asked, I'd never be able to do my own thing. I'm like, yeah. Totally understand, but thank you, thanks for your reply. So so it's just like, if you want to work with somebody, you gotta you have to be, you have to enter into a conversation about,
assertive. Yeah.
Sure.
So, Kurt, just on timing, we should probably get into the business questions, right? Like, since we've last spoke, you have this second edition, and
wait, Jake.
Yeah.
One second before, just hold that thought. But I know Kurt and I should talk about this one story.
Yes.
because it's so like in his wheelhouse of sword and sorcery.
Oh, the barbarian one?
It messed me.
Yeah.
It so much messed me up. It was like, and my literal note I wrote, I'm jealous that this is in the collection. And you're saying though, this person I'm sorry, it was Kenny.
Kenny Plord.
Kenny Plord. He made this like years ago, right?
So
and then
yeah,
you
so
just...
the backstory on that is Kenny is like probably a couple years old, probably your guys' age. You know, like you guys are like a couple years older than me.
72.
Oh, really?
No. Jake's 62.
You don't look an age over 63.
Don't listen to Kurt. Don't listen to Kurt.
I know how old you guys are.
Yeah.
Anyways, so Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, it looks like an 80s style.
Yeah. So Ken was
total.
So Kenny was a customer at the same local comic store that I went to, and I was always down there. So when he would come in on Wednesday, we would talk, and finally, you know, I knew what his influences were, and you know what he really appreciated. And he's like, oh yeah, I did this comic right before I graduated high school. So I was like, oh yeah, bring it in. So he brought it in. And I was like, hey, this is awesome. Can I use your character, Kor, the barbarian? He'll be like the father to Sam, the grandson of Satan. So that's it. That's in the first book. That there's like one illustration of him in the first book. So when it came time to do this, I was like, listen, I want to like actually print your comic in my book. Can we make that happen? And he was like, sure, go ahead. So that was authentically done back in 1980.
Wow.
Yeah. I always say those pages there, there's no paper textures, there's no faux aging. That's what those pages look like.
Wow. So that is that's a classic right there.
And the only other thing I'd like to touch on before we leave this book is the AI thing. Because I don't want to be left hanging out there that I'm a fan of AI artwork. So when Midjourney, you know, I think it's absolutely amazing technology and what it can do, and it's only more incredible now than when I did this book. So I generated those images. The point of the story is basically Manfred the Man Machine downloads an AI program and decides he's going to be a comic book artist. So, like, there's all sorts of images, and the styles don't really align. And just the idea is you need more than just images to make a comic. You need story, and you need heart. So I took an interview with Dave McKean from, you know, the Sandman covers, and I took all his quotes about it and made that into the dialogue. And it's all footnoted and like. So it's an AI story about how we shouldn't be making AI comics, you know. So I just wanted to get that out there before we wrapped up on this section of.
Yeah, that's the one thing that's interesting about AI is to experiment with it and see, you know, what it does, because, you know, it has to take in things that already exist. But it's also trying to anticipate what people want, and the readers, the public, they're so fickle. How can you ever know? If anybody knew exactly what they want, you'd have the formula for success, and you know, it's a lot more hit and miss in real life. So, you know, that's the one thing. You know, AI, it's basically just, you know, a digital hack. You know, it's just gonna like hack out some kind of like formula, you know, some real derivative, you know, stuff, and then, you know, you wonder, you know, if it's gonna evolve into something else. But, you know, for now, it's just like, all right, you know, once you screw around with it a couple times, it's just so predictable. You know, it's like there's nothing really exciting there.
Going back. Oh, no, go ahead, Mac.
I have to say, like, so on those pages there, those are all fake comic books, like fake titles and stuff. It was a blast coming up with, like, all these fake titles.
Crawdad and Thunderbolt.
I actually crowdsourced on my Instagram, like, different, you know, I had people send in suggestions and stuff. So,
yeah.
And then I had, like, I crowdsourced the logo making, you know, so like there's a bunch of different logo designers in there that made the logos, and then I just want to mention Sarah Robertson, who helped me like with all the lettering and stuff. I mean,
That's nice.
it's this book is so many people involved besides me. It's just like it's pretty amazing, if I have to say so myself.
And going back on my statement about, you know, going to SPX 6 years ago and being disappointed in the Adventure Time thing, over time I did come a little bit more into appreciation, because I was like, oh, okay, well, they're using that, let's say, technical quickness to tell their own story. So, and a lot of it was so autobiographical, which was another kind of like turn off.
Yeah, that's
for
not
me.
Both of those things aren't really for me. Autobio stuff.
Right.
I mean, there's always exceptions, but and that art style you're talking about, I usually just like I can't get into it either.
Right. So, yeah, I when I came to this, it was a similar reaction to coming to Core, where there was a jealousy to it, because because I had already spent hours and hours inside this thing flipping around, you know, I don't have an adverse reaction to AI, but when I read it, I was like, oh, so just like everything else, you can't take yourself so damn serious. You know, oh, they're stealing my style. Oh, all this stuff that you just keep hearing, where, just like Jake said, it can't create. Right. Creation is coming through us and our personality,
yes.
The way we've existed, our feelings at the time of making, you know, just all this human stuff. So for you to do it, but I'll also say the other part of the jealousy is I remember playing with it immediately when it came out, and I just love how deformed everything is. Right. I still do. Still do. I technically right now have some of the old versions on my computer, just because years from now, I want to be able to have really crappy AI generated art to work from, because I don't want it refined. I look at it as more like just spontaneous sketching in front of you. And then you go, oh, okay, cool. I'm good. And then you just bring out the pad of paper and start going and everything. But the incorporation, it's just so good.
It has that nightmare factor that like is kind of cool, but
yeah, especially those animations where everything is like morphing into different stuff.
Yeah,
that really.
I especially love the jibber jabber language stuff. I just really loved it. And once again, I was like, God damn it, Matt, you got it, beat me to it. You know, that just like, you're like, well, what is it saying? Oh, AI is trying to communicate to us, and he's blocked it here, so we're not going to, you know, it's just like, whatever.
I have to say, it was
taking yourself so serious.
It was fun to generate those images. You know, for every image in the book, there's 20 different ones that I didn't use. You know, I've just played around with it for weeks. But that, you know, all that being said, I respect art and artists too much to like, you know, make another book like that. You know what I mean? Like, I would never do another story. I just, you know, you got to support real artists. It's like, everybody's going to lose their job to this shit eventually. You know, I don't know what the world's going to become. Not just artists, you know, they got McDonald's that don't have human beings in it now. It's like, you know, so we're on the downward slide. So I'm going to support artists as much as I can when I can.
Well, you don't have. Well, you don't have. You have machines that can make your burgers, and you can ring up your burgers, put it in a bag, and everything. But you don't have the. They can't eat the burger for you yet. So that's the one thing where we still have, you know. It's like that
meme where it's like, I want AI to do my laundry and cook dinner and stuff. I don't want it to make my comic books, you know.
Okay, yeah.
I want to make the comic books.
Right.
I don't want to have to do my laundry, you know.
Yeah, right. Take away the drudgery. Well, you know, it can take away the drudgery. Like if you say, all right, generate, 28 pages and all different panel sizes, you know, and all right, that just saved you, a couple hours. But
but tell that to all the magazine illustrators that don't have a job anymore. You know, it's like, the genie's out of the bottle. So I don't know what the answer is, but the best I can do is just support artists when I can.
Yeah, I mean there was that's always been a big issue. There was an episode of All in the Family where like Archie gets the neighbor, I forget her name. She was like the tomboyish lady that was real handy, and he gets her a job at the loading dock, and then she says, "Hey, why don't we just like put a ramp in there?" And then Archie says, "That's my job," right? And he did him, and he's like, "Get her the hell out of there." Um, so yeah, I mean, there's always been like inefficiency is one of the greatest job creators ever. I mean, I always said, if you just want to make work for people, they've done that. Some countries have done that. They just have people digging holes, and then a bunch of other people come and fill the holes, and then another bunch of people come and fill and dig the holes again. So
I mean, and the last thing on my diatribe about technology and all this stuff is the worker is never the one that benefits. It's the corporations and the owners that are going to be the only ones profiting on this stuff when we're all sitting around on unemployment.
Right. Well, that's the whole problem with the elite ownership class, because when they first invented machines, there's a letter from Einstein that says, now we have washing machines, and now we have forklifts, and we have all these things now, and it looks like machines can replace all the drudgery of human physical labor, or at least a lot of it. And everybody was saying that, we're going to have so much leisure time. And it's been just the opposite. Now we have to have two parents working in the household, and the hours are longer than ever. And, because everything has just stovepiped all the way up to the top. So I'm with you on that. I'm definitely with you on that.
Long live the oligarchy.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
so Jake, what was the business that you wanted to jump into?
well, we always have a segment where we talk about the marketing and the logistics.
Yeah,
I mean, people might want to know how long this was in progress for. You have issue 1, then issue 2 is released. What's the timeline on that?
Sure.
You have a lot of artists. Whatever you want to talk about as far as like the structure, and because I'm sure some people might see your book and wonder how they can get involved. Hey, I do some pinups. Hey, I do some art. So talk about just kind of like the business aspect.
Sure. So book 1 we started back in 2017. We ran the Kickstarter in 2021 and delivered, I believe, in the beginning of 2022. So it took like 5 years.
Yeah.
To get that first book out. It's less, paying James a page rate, every time he turned in a page, PayPaling the money over, and like just getting it done page by page by page. At the same time, I had, some people in the second book, like I said, some of the stories were intended for the first book before I just pushed them all into the second. Some of the people in there are my friends, and they, like Tony Sidani, for example, he did a couple stories in the second book.
Mm-hmm.
And, he just did those pages, because he's a friend of mine. He didn't get paid.
Right.
If this thing was a huge moneymaker, I would love to pay everybody out. You know what I mean?
Right.
But, overall, I don't know if anybody wants to take business advice from me, because I lost money. You know what I mean?
No, well, this is advice. This is advice.
Okay, so basically, don't do this. What I would do these 2 books are exactly as I intended. I wanted these huge tomes, to exist in the world. The smarter play would be the model that like Image Comics does, where you have a 6-issue series, you have 6 single issues that come out, and basically
collect them at the end.
The profits of those 6 issues funds your, you break even, and then when you have the collection, then you make money,
Right.
So it's way smarter. If I do a second project, which I've written a script and I've been talking to an artist, I don't want to announce anything because things do fall through, and it's still a long ways off. But I would do. It's intended to be issue by issue by issue. It's like a 15 or 18 issue series broken into 3 different collections of 5 or 6 issues apiece. So
right. Yeah, because this second issue, did it also take the same amount of time as the first?
So like I said, some of those stories were started even in 2017, but
Right.
then some of them. So the second book came out a year later than the first because everything was already in motion.
Right.
It was a lot of them were already complete by the time the first book came out. So a lot of time was like lettering the stories and getting the graphic design done, because as good as my brother is, he loves to procrastinate. And so I really had to really plead with him to get this all assembled. And I have a good friend who really did help assemble all the print files, did a lot of the different lettering, and he's also a graphic design artist. He's Hunchback Travis on Instagram. Incredible designer. So between my brother and my buddy Travis here, I just couldn't have made these books. But anyway, so the books came out like a year apart, maybe 15 or 16 months apart. So it's a ton of work, no doubt.
Kickstarters.
Yeah,
both
Kickstarted. Correct.
So it's like Avatar 2 and 3, right? You had to wait like 10 years for number 2, but then number 3 comes out a year later, right?
Right. We'll see.
Yeah. Great. So, people can see, this is a labor of love, obviously. There's a lot of hands on it. It reminds you of an orchestra. When you buy a ticket and you go see classical music live and you're like, oh man, there's like 50 people in this orchestra. You wonder, do they go home? At the end of the night, do they line up and say, okay, here's the split, guys. You get $3 and you get,
right.
$3. No, most of those guys are just in it for the love. They have a date.
So with the orchestra analogy, I think of myself less of a conductor and more of like a circus ringmaster,
Yeah, the promoter.
All this craziness, just like trying to get everyone's attention and get everything aligned.
Yeah.
And
so talk about the print runs now, so people can see, because I can see these things being, like 50, 100 years from now, like, what is this? People of the future are going to be like, who put this together, and how many of these are in existence? So
right.
What are the current? And I know you might print and print and print for your whole life, but what's the print runs?
So these were, since the first book is like 312 pages or something, and the second book is like 550 pages. Something like that.
Yeah.
They're incredibly expensive to produce. So I had them printed in, I think it was Korea.
Uh-huh.
And I had 1,000 copies of the first book printed. I have less than 100 left here. And I had 750 of the second book printed, and I have a lot left. A lot.
Right. Well, it's not out for like, yeah. I mean, so when I did comics in the 90s, it took 10 years to sell the whole run out, and it depends, and maybe this is a good segue, but it depends on the marketing aspect of it and how you get in front of people. So most publishers, they do the convention circuit. They have a website. They have Kickstarter. That's a way to bring in a lot of new customers. But what's your overall strategy?
First of all, it's like imperative for a creator to start a mailing list, like collect email addresses of people interested in the book, or either an email list or a Substack, which are basically the same thing.
Yeah, like a newsletter, right?
Yeah, exactly. Incredibly important, because when it's time to launch your book, they might miss it on, Facebook and Instagram with the algorithms, but like a direct email is definitely the most assured way of getting it in front of their face. So that, but then I do Facebook, Instagram, and as far as shows, it doesn't seem worth it to me. All the table fees and the traveling, and it just
right.
It just doesn't seem worth it. I did do the New Haven show, IC3, which is short for Indie Comics Creator Con, which was a fun show. It was way less like SPX, like you were describing, Kurt. And
right.
I think you guys would actually really dig this show, and I think you would do.
I'm going.
I think you would. Did you get a table? You should get a table.
I already submitted, but I haven't heard anything back. I know Marcus said that he's rolling them out over each month.
Okay.
So I don't know, but I even if not, I'm still just going to have a backpack full of my stuff and just go to
absolutely
table. I would probably even prefer that more.
Yeah, I was telling Kurt we should definitely try to go to that and do it and and press the flesh and everything. But I imagine
a table.
Go ahead. What?
A table is $75. It's like you're not going to find anything cheaper and more niche centric than that show. Yes, they could use they could have used more people through the door, but that was the first year. Hopefully, it will build up.
Right.
For $75, and from where I am to drive there, it's worth it for me to for a day.
Yeah.
So
and I was telling Kurt, we got to organize. I'm sure people already do this, but we got to organize like a big hangout after it's all over, and you go to the nearest Applebee's or something. But that's when you could really sit down and socialize.
Yeah, there's a hotel that I actually stayed over. Me and my buddy Steve McCardle, you should have on your show too.
Yes, yes.
He's a friend of mine. We drove down together. We tabled back to back, and we ended up getting a room and hanging. And the hotel bar was just loaded with all these people from the show. It was a lot of fun.
Exactly,
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's where a lot of networking happens, and you have
correct.
You have a lot of time to talk without general public filing by every 2 seconds, right?
Right.
Yeah. Great stuff. So there's Kurt. Well, you could help us out how we're doing on time.
We're definitely over, but I expected that because there's just too much to talk about. But I do want to lead us over to the fact that this is an exchange. So one of the things that Jake and I are relying on is having other creators on to be able to not only talk about, their work, our work, but also like the future of comics, or where is it going? How is it going? What you should and shouldn't do. And as always, Matt, you have given us just such a deep dive. But we really want to hear from you, about how we're doing. I know you're a follower, a Turbo not, but we always looking for suggestions, feedback, and criticism. So let us have it, please.
Yeah. Like I said last time, I love what you guys are doing with this.
Thank you.
I just say, just keep on going. I have no criticism whatsoever. I am so into this.
Too kind.
If anything, I would just think you need to add a Tuesday to start drawing too.
That's Jake's fault. Jake's got to start calling in sick more often. That's.
That's the problem. I'm gonna be careful what you ask for.
You have this panel here with the woman, and she's drinking, and you got the stuff running down her chin. Like, dude, I just love what you guys are doing. I got nothing but just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, we're releasing 6 pages at a time as these little teasers. They're just for promotional purposes. We're not printing out very many at all. And
Right.
we're just showing like some friends and some insiders, our progress as we do it. So we got up to 12 pages now. And then there's a little section in the back where we're launching our Substack, where we're going that this is where we're really going to get deeper into the world of Turbo, and all of these little subcategories are all these little separate threads that go into the timeline. We're breaking off like about 200 years before the events that you're reading about, and we want to try and explain how the world got destroyed and how things got so bad. And that's also an opportunity for collabs and feedback and audience participation. But Kurt has me.
Well, there was that ding. Jake and I's phones just dinged, and at the same time, and is that at 11:20 on Sundays, I have the our Substack, the Doom Mag Substack, go out. And this is our second installment. It's the End of the World installment, a turmoil-laden sci-fi story, timeline stories, illustrations, reader comments, and bonus material that will knock you sideways.
I love it.
And it's great because in our Making Turbo episode, which we'll record right after this, I've got to get on Jake to send me more text and visuals, because it's very haphazard in one way. I think people might look at it and be like, oh, I don't really kind of get it. And it is sort of structured that way because this is a work in progress. And Jake and I both follow the same philosophy. It's like, we don't want to start with day one, panel one, page one, and then, it's more like what's going on. And I pride myself being Jake's partner in this whole thing, but I also love because I get to get questions from him. So he's telling me right from the source, what he's thinking, but he needs to know, should we go right or left? Should we go up or down? These types of things. So, just to boost our Making Turbo Pit Fighter podcast, that's what it's all about, is that process. And, we're very process conscious, Jake and
I. Right. Let me ask you, how many pages is the full issue going to be of issue 1?
Yeah, they're going to be
28.
Comic length, but then there's 6 of them that'll go together at the end.
Okay.
If we can ever get to the end, and then it'll be a nice graphic novel of about about
sure.
a couple hundred.
And I think I asked you last time, but I don't remember. Are you going to print it at this size, or are you shrinking it down to comic book size?
Well, both. But I'm really liking the magazine format.
I love. This is when I do my next book. If I do my next book, it's definitely magazine size. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can put it out comic size too, and see how that if that makes a difference. But right now the teasers are coming out magazine size, and I just have them trim it, and I like it. It's a little bit better, so you can see all the detail. And
yeah, because if you print it at comic book size, it's going to shrink everything down. The lettering's going to be small. I think there's room to breathe on these magazines. The old,
I agree,
creepy, eerie.
Right.
The old Marvel magazines, the Tomb of not Tomb of Dracula, Monsters Unleashed or whatever it was. Yeah. All that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. So that is one difference. I thought in the beginning, oh no, we got to do everything standard. It's got to fit in the bag, and
nah, dude, that's boring. Blaze your own trail.
Yeah, so I like that. But Kurt and I are also going to be playing around with all these little variant versions too. Like we might do one on weird paper, and we might do one on I mean,
well,
not to be gimmicky or everything, but really just to do some trial and error.
Right. Well, you might change your mind when you get your printing quotes.
Yeah, I know. I was in the industry for a long time, and
shit is crazy.
I know that just paper, and I mean you could probably do better just buying your own printing press, than for all these costs involved. But and they did that in the undergrounds. They did that with Apex Novelties. Um, but yeah, we're just plugging away, and it's
I love it.
slow and steady on Sundays. And if anybody ever wants to take a peek inside the making of, we have that whole series. We're on episode number, what is it, Kurt? We've already
121.
Wow.
We've already had 2 years of weekly episodes.
So I haven't watched many of them, but I'm definitely going to be stealing that idea.
Yeah, please.
For some sort of video content if we do this next book. So
I think it's
a great idea.
Matt, one of the things I also have my Crom the Barbarian collection. You got a copy of it. Yeah. And I don't want to take any time on this channel about it, but I have another channel which has a blog, and I use the video to, build the blog, but it's having the conversation with creators and other people that would contribute or just give me feedback. I was thinking about this last night with you. I just think that same model of you just being the host in a sense, because you're such an excellent ringleader, and you're also very deeply knowledgeable, and it comes through in your books. And I with the loss of Ed Piskor and the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel, I only have 3 comic book reviewing channels that I watch, because they basically give me just enough, but the thing they lack, and it's really just how it goes about, is Cartoonist Kayfabe brought a historical context to the work, and obviously that I absolutely love. I think I'm pushing you publicly here, because you hold that. Dude, because of your Instagram, I've bought probably $400 worth of comic books this year. It's because I'm like, what the hell is that? And I've reached out, I'm like, what is that? Oh, that's so-and-so did that and everything. But that's your response. Your response isn't just what the title is. It's, oh, this came out at this time, and they work with these people. And that, that's the thing I miss. I love looking at a comic online on YouTube. I love hearing somebody think, but after 10 minutes, it's repetitive. It needs to go deeper. It needs it needs the context, the historical context. And I just have to also say too, I got to get this off my chest. I don't understand why more people don't have this and don't talk about it, because I think if you had done it with 6 issues and it built to it, it would probably have been a better business model. But I'm just telling you, people, you have to have this, because it's a historical context too. When it comes, I mean, come on, he has a comic book from 1980 in here. It doesn't make any sense. But I also will put it on you, Matt, that if you just sat in that little cozy chair you're at right now, and with somebody else in your just pod, because you know how easy this is. There's nothing too much.
The thing with Jim and Ed is they were both artists, and they had a language that I can't speak to. I don't have I can't speak to the different inking styles of so and so, or I know what I know. I know what I've read. I could talk about Jack Katz for a minute, but I don't have the deep repository of knowledge that those guys
point.
had.
That's a good point. It was artist centric because they were artists. The twist
historical too.
The twist that we put on it is we ask the question, why don't they record while they're drawing?
Yeah, why don't people get together and talk out the creative? Because to be honest with you, when I edit our videos, a lot more questions come up. So I write those questions down, and then that next Sunday, Jake, I'm like, Jake, what the heck were we talking? Why were we talking about? Oh, yeah, that's right. And we'll both go and do some research. We'll get some context to go a little bit deeper into that, because we don't want to come off as know-it-alls. We don't want to be cat's meow, about all this. It's really, we want to share, and it's our retirement program. So we're both, well into our 50s. I'm not in any position to, I don't go into like the whole when I'm going to retire, because I am a small business owner, on my own. So it's just, I can keep doing it. But Jake has a time where he'll, not have to work as a teacher.
Yeah, I'm a teacher.
So, and then once he's retired and collecting a pension, I think the dynamic is all just going to be there and everything for us to really build off of. So, we're not trying to be Johnny Carson, Ed McMahon. That's the other thing. I have a horde on YouTube channels. And if you're trying to do that with comic books and nostalgia, you're not going to get me in. I just want to have this kind of honest.
Let me shout out my buddy Chris Anderson's YouTube channel.
Yes, we've connected.
Okay, cool, awesome.
Yep. We're waiting on each other's books, and then we'll set up a time.
I'd love to see him on here, but he started a weekly reading of an issue of Claremont's X-Men, like from the beginning, from Giant Size
#1
all the way up. You know what I mean? And I think it's a great pace reading one of these issues every week, and hearing that people talk about it has been fascinating. Plus, he's got some great interviews with indie comics artists, and talk about their books. So if you're looking, if you need a channel, I would send people there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's Chris a good Anderson. One. That's a good one. We use it's like younger people don't understand what it was like when those X-Men came out. They shot to #1, and all of a sudden they're outselling Spider-Man and outselling, Batman and everything. And it stayed like that for 10 years, 20 years, And then you had all the spin-offs, which got a little, which got a little boring and everything. But it's all because of Claremont. And, it starts out with Dave Cockrum, has a really, really good run. And then you get into the John Byrne years, and it just takes off, And, when I say kids today, when people today see the, the X-Men movies, and they see the X-Men 98, 96, whatever, they don't understand, the original run, what the impact it had, how it was different, what was so good about it. And so it would be great to go, back, because I had all those. I had 94, 90, and all the way up through the hundreds, and I kept collecting, into the 90s. My dad made me sell my collection. I lost my shirt, and I don't have my hands on those anymore. I'm not about to buy a reprint that has 100% yellow, 100%, those colors.
The coloring is, it's terrible, but I'm not going back and.
Yeah. So you want to see the old stuff,
Right. I had to go with this just to read along, but
yeah, I mean, you got to see the story. You got to read the story and see the art, but you're not getting the experience. I would rather look through a yellowed copy, with rips and everything and coffee stains.
Agreed. And that's what they do on that channel. John Coates, who has the single issues originals, they're always colored in. Covers are ripped, But there's such a cool nostalgic authenticity to it,
Yeah.
And those books are just a product of their time. If I try to give my nephew an X-Men 94 or whatever, or I read issue 103 with a bunch of leprechauns last night, it's he's not going to be into that,
Yeah.
So they're products of their time, but it's been, I think it's a cool series, and I'm not here just to promote Chris, but I do find it something I enjoy every week.
No, it's a great concept, and when he runs out of those X-Men's to cover,
there's a lot of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of them for sure, but it's just, the idea, of it is, taking people back and understanding, I mean, we all stand on the shoulders of people that came before us, and we might not even know, what it was all like. I mean, that's why I love history so much, because the actual history, and talking to people that were there, it's different from the, the way that everybody describes it nowadays. Like, take Martin Luther King, for example. They hated him. Like, he was enemy number one back in those days, and then, it over time it changes, and you really like, wow, now it all sinks in and everything. At the time, I mean, so, everything has that, reality to it. And, I have a friend from the autograph days who is, he worked at Christie's now. He's like one of the foremost historians of the Revolutionary War. And he says, it's nothing what people think, right? The real story, it's just so much more real. It's just so much more interesting, because kids in school, they all learn a version,
What's that Norm Macdonald meme where he's like, looking at history books, and he's like, the good guys always won. Who would have thought?
Yeah, because the bad guys.
All right, let's close this down. We always like to keep these bite-sized, but when we have somebody like Matt on, we gotta really deep dive into it. Matt, biggest question: how the hell does somebody become a true believer?
I guess go to my Etsy store and pick up the 2 books. Definitely a good starter course for you.
Because I'll put links in the bottom.
Etsy.com
I think it's kingmegatrip.etsy.com, but I mean, just Google Tales to Enlighten Etsy, and it'll come right up.
It does come up first. It does come up first. But there'll be a link in the description below. But look, Matt, I just want to say on my behalf, thank you so much for taking the time this morning, even jumping on early. But this is not the end. Once again, interviews, the exchange program is to with each other, support when we can, get the word. I actually really hope to see you at IC3 because, like I said, I'm going to go no matter what, if we have a table or not. But other than that, thanks again. And Jake, do you have anything before we let Matt say the goodbyes?
Thanks to Matt. It was great catching up. You have a whole new great product here, so it was good that we could do this. I'm going to draw a pentagram on my floor and light some candles.
There you go.
I'm going to be thinking about you. It's really good, to.
I'll send over a virgin for you to sacrifice.
But no, it definitely will be in touch, And
listen, I could talk comics every week with you guys. It's no problem. I had a blast. I really into what you guys are doing. That whole like 1980s black and white blaze your own trail kind of thing is just what.
Dr. Order.
It's just what comics need, I mean, I love it. I can't get enough of it, and I'm here for it.
Thank you.
Great. Well, let's end on a good note. So we'll talk to you again.
Great, guys. Thank you.
Megatrip.
See you.